Good Monday morning. We got our first football Sunday in the books, and it was an interesting one all the way around, except for the New York Jets, who played horribly. Of course, that is going to be a big story today, and probably a bigger story is the fact that the New York Giants on the road come back and beat last year's number one seed in the AFC, the Tennessee Titans, after being down 13-0. Brian Daboll goes for two. He's got the guts to do that. The defense does enough to put the Titans in a tough spot and miss a 47-yard field goal, and they're dancing in the locker room afterwards. So good for the Giants. I still don't think Daniel Jones is the answer. I still don't think you're going to give Saquon Barkley a contract, but this morning, if you're a Giants fan, you haven't seen your team win in week one since 2016, you feel pretty damn good. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Good morning, Jay. I'm doing real well. And by the way, a couple things out of that Giant game. Really, there's two stories. One, Brian Daboll goes for two to win the game and comes up with a play that, usually don't see the Giants run or try to run. And Saquon Barkley makes an unbelievable move to be able to get in and score the two-point conversion. And number two, it really is about Saquon Barkley. He looked great yesterday. I mean, out of all the criticism that I've thrown at him, that a lot of other people thrown at him about being tougher, running between the tackles, breaking tackles, running people over, the kid came out of the gate and he had a great start to this season. That's just a great start, and congratulations to Brian Daboll on getting his first win as a head coach for the Giants and making that to me it was a no-brainer of a call to go for two. I think there were some people out there that probably felt like kicking the field goal and going to overtime. He knew that he's on the road. He had the team on the ropes. He had a chance to win the game, and unlike Brian Kelly, who had the chance to do the same thing to Florida State after he steamrolled 99 yards on them to get within, an extra point to tie. He decided to go for the extra point, didn't make it, and they ended up losing the game. Brian Daboll did not have the same fate. He decided, look, I got this play. Let's execute this play. And Saquon did a great job of scoring the two-point conversion. So, hey, look, man, they're hard to win these NFL games. It's just hard. And especially on the road, especially against a good team, especially against a team that has a really good defensive line. But the Giant offensive line did a hell of a job. And once Saquon got to the second level, he made moves. He also lowered his shoulder a few times. And he played a really, really physical football game. So I was happy for him.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you have to be because of the offseason, everything he said, and, of course, all the injuries that he's dealt with. I thought there was one play that was significant other than the two big runs that he had for me, and it was only like a 4-yard pickup. It's where there's a little swing pass out to the left. He probably wasn't the first option, ended up dumping it off to him. It's one-on-one with him and a corner at that point. And the Saquon of the past couple of years might have taken a step here, step there, tried to dance, maybe go out of bounds. He went straight at the guy, put his head down, straight at the guy, and started churning his legs, which is something I haven't seen from him in a very, very long time, probably since his rookie season. And three things I thought from Brian Daboll that we haven't seen with the Giants in a long time as well is, one, great halftime adjustments. Like, you're getting your ass kicked in the first half. You're not playing well. You come out, you change some things offensively and defensively. They were 20 times better in the second half than they were in the first half. Holding people accountable in game. Walking over to Daniel Jones after that terrible interception in the end zone and not going, hey, buddy, it's all right. Not giving him the Aaron Boone, hey, you gave it a good shot. He's going, what the hell are you doing? His hands are out. He's doing like, the whole, what is that? That's terrible. You can't do that. You cost us a game. It didn't cost them a game. And the other thing is the aggressiveness that we talked about, the two-point conversion, having the balls to do that. So this was a great debut for Brian Daboll. You hope that Daboll and Shane turn this thing around. It's going to take some time, but in this first game to come back and beat a good Titans team, I mean, Brian Daboll this morning is right. The king of the hill.
Well, I know that the first half wasn't great from an offensive standpoint. From a defense standpoint, it wasn't bad. They did a pretty good job of containing Derrick Henry for the most part. And if you look at it from the Titans' perspective, you're like, what are they doing?
Yeah, I know.
At the end of this game, I mean, so they made a ton of mistakes. Here's the thing you have to remember: we're in week one. We got a long way to go. None of these players have played 4 quarters of football. Nobody is like mentally and physically ready to go for 4 quarters of football. So the teams that usually win these games, especially these close games, late in games, are usually the teams that are in the best shape. And there were so many weird games yesterday and so many crazy endings, especially the one in Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, or in Cincinnati with Pittsburgh. It just goes to show you that these players are not ready to really go. Some players are, like, Patrick Mahomes is, Justin Herbert is, Josh Allen is. I think Tom Brady is. Obviously, the Cowboys now are in a world of hurt with Dak Prescott, who's probably going to be out between 6 and 8 weeks as he hits his hand as he's throwing the football late in the fourth quarter last night against the Buccaneers. But even before that, they couldn't do anything offensively because the Bucs got a good defense, and it showed up last night. So, it's week one. We're going to have a lot of opinions about a lot of things, including the Jets. Who now lose a double-digit game for like the 31st time in the last 5 years, which is tied for the league. I mean, it's embarrassing from that standpoint. But I will say that I really felt like, the defense for the Jets looked a lot better. If you want to sit there and say the offense looked better and Saquon looked better for the Giants, that's good. I thought the defense kept them in the game, and then a couple big plays over the top hurt them. But that's what happens when you're playing against Lamar Jackson and you're playing up in his face and you're playing a lot of man coverage. And there was a couple of mistakes by safeties. Those plays are going to happen, but they got no support whatsoever from the Jet offense.
No, and that's probably why you heard a lot of the positive spin that you heard after the game from Rob Saleh and a bunch of the defensive players, which I didn't love.
Yeah, but again, remember how bad they were
last year. I know, but I mean, they're supposed to, I don't know. They were supposed to play better than what they played yesterday. Regardless of Joe Flacco or not. They were supposed to play better than that. It felt like they didn't have an offseason. It felt like they brought back the same exact team. Like they were terrible in the middle of the year and threw them out there in week one and they got their brains beat in again.
Well, you had drop passes.
Yes.
You had sacks. George Fant may have played his worst game as a Jet at left tackle, which is unfortunate because you don't have a quarterback that can move around. You have flatliner Joe Flacco that I was really disappointed. I thought, this is like, okay, I'm a starter in this league. Well, not by yesterday's standards. Now, it's not all his fault. Corey Davis drops a big ball that hits him in the back shoulder, and, there were all sorts of mistakes offensively, and they never got into any sort of rhythm. And
they couldn't convert a third down.
Right, and the problem was that there's no energy to the team. The one thing I'll say about Lamar Jackson is that, there's energy, even though they kind of bottled him up and the defense held them to under 300 yards of total offense. I mean, they were all over him. He ran the ball once for 4 yards.
Yeah.
So I think that's why you hear that silver lining stuff, but Jet fans don't want to hear that.
No, of course, especially after this offseason and everything that we had heard going into the year and the great draft that they had and the great offseason that they had, and second year Rob Saleh, and things just are going to be different, and it just wasn't different. Now, I know that the crowd is chanting Mike White, and I understand that Mike White is not Justin Herbert. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not one of the best quarterbacks in football. But, I mean, Joe Flacco is just finished. I'm sorry. He's done. And I know that there was players, all over him and defensive line, the linebackers in his face the entire game. But that's part of the problem is he can't move. He can't move. And when you can't convert a third down until 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, a lot of that has to do with the quarterback.
I know it does, and that's the energy of the quarterback. That's what the quarterback brings to every team. And to throw 59 times is just insane. It's insane. It's not.
And then we're having success on the ground. I understand they fell behind, but they were having some success on the ground early on in the game.
It's a victim of circumstance. It's like you basically throw everything out the window once you get down by 14 points. We got to get back into this game, and the only way we can do is throwing it, and that creates a problem because it shows a weakness, and it shows that he's just not what he was at one time. I thought maybe 30 passes. I thought it was going to be on time. It was going to be crisp. The Jet offense was exactly how I think you described it to be. You described it was going to look like this.
Yeah, well,
with this quarterback.
Right. Not converting third downs, getting off the field, throwing the ball into the ground, drops, things like that. And this offseason, now, I didn't see enough of Garrett Wilson. I didn't see any of C.J. Uzomah. I mean, these are the things that I needed to see from this new Jet offense.
Oh, you have a Conklin fumble, right? You have a Zerline missed field goal. You have a Zerline missed extra point.
Yep.
You have a drop touchdown pass. Mm-hmm. You have Corey Davis dropping a pass. The point being, it's not. I know we always focus on that quarterback, and believe me, I played the position, so I know it. But there are a lot of things that happen around you as a quarterback that are out of your control. I understand Jet fans don't want to see a 37-year-old Joe Flacco. I know that. Rip away. Have fun at it. Get mad at it, whatever you want to call it. But I could point to like 10 different things that happened yesterday that really had nothing to do with him.
Yeah, of course. And that's what's the most alarming thing. Remember, is the fact that the team from top to bottom looked terrible.
Well, on offense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really, really, especially with it being 9/11 and the chilling rendition of the national anthem and the way the whole thing looked and it felt. And I don't really want to tie them two together, but there should have been more emotion for the Jets. I mean, like Joe Flacco after the game's talking about how they were flat.
Yeah, I know.
Well, they're flat because of you.
Yeah.
I mean, like you're one of the reasons why they're flat.
Of course. I mean, just look at him. I mean, the guy he's like loitering out there. I mean, he said there was no sense of urgency in the huddle. Well, whose responsibility is that?
It's kind of yours. I mean, especially at 37 years old with a bunch of young kids, you got to bring the best out in them. I don't want to compare situations because they're completely different. But even like last night watching Tom Brady, okay, so they have a problem at left tackle. And Micah Parsons is just like all over him. And you could see that they're trying to figure out how they're trying. So they put the backup tackle in there, right? And he gives up a sack or a hit or whatever it was. And Tom Brady is in his face walking off the field. Like, what the F are you doing? And I'm like, that's how you got to be. If you're like a quarterback, you got to be in charge. You got to get in your players' faces. I mean, you got to make sure you have their respect before you do all this stuff. And I would think that Joe would have their respect over there. But man, you got to have expectations for your teammates. That's why I thought going into this with all these young players, with all these good skilled players that are around them right now, that's what he should be doing, and he doesn't have that part of him.
And there's a lot that, Tom Brady is an example that, like none other in the history of the NFL. But I'll give you some other examples of guys who you knew towards the end of their careers that their skills were diminished, but they were still out there giving it their all and being a leader. Phillip Rivers, that last year with the Indianapolis Colts.
Yep.
Wasn't playing at his highest, but he was still Phillip Rivers out there. And he was still talking trash. He was still energy. He was still everything. Ben Roethlisberger, last year, wasn't at his best, but he was still Ben Roethlisberger, the unquestioned leader of that team who had won some Super Bowls. And Joe Flacco has won a Super Bowl and has been a Super Bowl MVP. Matt Ryan yesterday for the Indianapolis Colts, even though they tied a bad Texans team, you see him running into the end zone and jumping on top of his teammates. I don't need Joe Flacco to be Tom Brady, but be more like these other guys where your skills have diminished, but it looks like they still care.
I'll never forget when Von Miller told me that Brock Osweiler was a good teammate and a fine player. He goes, but I don't care if Peyton Manning was 5% of what Peyton Manning is. We want him on the field.
Yeah.
And we want him on the field not because of, that he could still play the way that he was playing. That last year they won the Super Bowl 50. It was because of his personality and his presence on the field. He made all of us feel a lot better about who we were and what our expectations were to win. And he's out there with a bad neck.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was half the player that he once was. But they won a Super Bowl with him because he was in uniform, he was on the field, and that defense just swarmed all over Cam Newton in that Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I know that Joe Flacco was brought in to be a backup, and he wasn't supposed to start, and he probably can't start at this point in his career. But when you have that veteran presence who's seen it all and has got all these young players around, what you need from him is that energy, is that confidence, is that experience. All these things while you have him there. And it doesn't seem like any of that's coming out of him. So then what is he exactly?
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Your particular team, the Minnesota Vikings, just basically wiped up on the Packers.
That's right, and they didn't even have a training camp. They just sat around and drank pina coladas and
slept. No. They did not have pina coladas. They had smart eating habits.
Yeah, right.
Sleeping habits. Mm-hmm. No hitting.
The
whole thing.
Yep.
But did you see the veteran quarterback for the Green Bay Packers and his sideline, body language and eye rolls, frustrations and everything else?
And after the game, he said we got to hold these young guys accountable for the drops and stuff like that. Yeah, I've seen it all. But I mean,
that first pass was like hit Watson right in the hands.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly for them.
Down the sideline would have been an easy touchdown.
Yeah, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers, what is it, back-to-back MVPs that he's won now? So
we'll give him a pass.
Yeah, a little bit.
We're not going to overreact.
No, we're not going to overreact too much to that.
No, nor should we overreact about any of this.
And oh, by the way, remember last year they got their teeth kicked in by the New Orleans Saints, and he went on to have another MVP season in week 1.
Yes.
So we'll see. We'll see where they end up. But that was nice to see, for sure. So we'll see if this coach is something.
I mean, it looked like the Bengals hadn't played football in 10 years.
I know.
The first half was unbelievable.
And you and Coach Cowher got legitimately into it on the NFL Today about the Steelers and the Bengals.
Well, I got mad at. I got to be honest.
There was some real tension there.
Yeah, I got mad because I felt like there was a real bias towards the Steelers. And we're talking about Mitch Trubisky. I'm like, wait, time out. The Bengals went to the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah. And
what are we doing here? Why are we I understand Pittsburgh's a popular team and a great franchise and great history, and we love their coach and. But I thought we at CBS were just a little bit too biased.
I got pissed.
Yeah, because I did not see the tease, and Drew
Chin came out and everything.
And Drew was telling me, "Oh, the tease is going to be great and everything else," and I'm in the tease getting sacked. And I'm like, what the F is this all about?
Yeah, and then when you guys did your Super Bowl predictions and Cowher picked whoever he picked, when it came around to you went, I'm surprised you didn't pick the Steelers. And he was like, started getting all mad. He's like, what? Well, you gonna pick the Bengals? You picked the Bengals.
Whoa. Hey.
That's not nice.
No. But I will say, for us, though, sitting there watching these games, man, and that Steeler-Pittsburgh game, and he and I were yelling at each other. And I'm like, why? I know not everybody saw it out there, but I just have to ask you this question because maybe you saw it on Red Zone or not.
No, I got a wife who's a Steeler fan. She's into it. Yeah.
Okay, so Jamar Chase catches the ball on the goal line. His right foot is on the goal line. The ball is in his right hand, meaning that the ball has broken the plane of the goal line. And the Bengals go running up there to run a play, and they don't even challenge the call on the field because it was called that the ball would be on the 1-yard line.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the next play, they try to run it up the middle, and they lose 3 yards.
I just think they were thinking, hey, we're on the 1-yard line. We'll just put it in. And that didn't even look.
That was a bad look. It was like the coaching staff was out to lunch. The defense was out to lunch. The offense was out to lunch, and Joe Burrow was just all erratic all over the place. He'll play a lot better this coming week. I guarantee it, because he did have a much better second half than he did in the first half. But can you imagine you play in the Super Bowl, the last play of the game you get sacked.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they spend all this money on 3 free agent offensive linemen. They bring in a rookie offensive guard, and everything's going to be good. First play from scrimmage, you get sacked.
Yeah.
And then the second play from scrimmage, Micah Fitzpatrick picks it off and takes it back for a big 6.
Yeah, not a great start. And by the way, T.J. Watt, torn pectoral. That's not a good thing.
Najee Harris has probably got a Liz Frank injury in his foot. So that's 2 of the top players for the Steelers that are going to be out of next week's game against the Patriots, depending on whether or not Mac Jones' back is okay, and he'll play in quarterback for the Patriots next week.